All right, I'm here with Thayer. It's JTV. Well, it's going to be GTV, and Thayer's going to ask me some questions. Sounds like about the book that I wrote. So, Thayer, go to it.
Okay, so I read your autobiography, and you talk about how you have battled anxiety both on and off the field. Being an anchor on JTV, I'm always thinking of cool topics to explore, and having you as a celebrity guest will hopefully bring some attention to the issue on my mind, anxiety. So at what age did you start feeling symptoms of anxiety?
Well, looking back, the thing is, I didn't know. I would never want to sleep at anyone else's house.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I knew. I didn't know that it was anxiety. I just knew that if it was going on a scout trip or some school overnight, I wasn't going. There's no way. And so that's how looking back, that's when I didn't really feel different during the day, at school, sports, nothing ever really bothered me other than when someone wanted me to come overnight and be away from home. And that's when I knew that something was a little different, but I just thought, I don't know, I just never thought about it being something that was going to stick around for a long time.
All right, and how did your parents help you with your anxiety when you were growing up?
I don't think they realized it was anxiety either. They just knew that, my dad would say, "What's the big deal? Just go overnight. It's not a problem." I'm like, "Oh, well, no, I have practice. I can't, I was just kind of making sure that I didn't do things that were totally uncomfortable. And I think my parents were just like, okay, because, I was getting great grades. I was in 3 sports. I was, everything was normal as you think about it, except for this thing that I didn't want to go. And so they're like, I'm sure my parents were like, wow, well, no big deal. He likes to be with us.
Right. So how did your youth or high school coaches help you with anxiety?
Well, it came out, I was always very, the anxiety really came out in my seriousness about things. Like I was super focused. I would worry about things, especially I remember in, 1 year in baseball, 13-year-old Babe Ruth baseball, I could get a hit and, I'm going to die if I don't get a hit, and the coaches would try to help me. And so I don't think people realized that it was that big of a thing, because it's normal to, be worried when you're a kid. I was just probably a little extra, but I think I had great coaches through the years that were very patient with me and would always try to, teach me the positives, hard work, and
right.
that would work out, and kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And can you share with me how you dealt with anxiety when playing specifically college football? Like, did it change at all?
I think it got harder the more people that were watching.
Right.
It was like, now all of a sudden, there's 60,000 people. And it really didn't bother me during the game. It was the time leading up to the game. It was the day before, 2 days before, waiting for it to, the day of, getting over to the stadium, in the locker room. Just even saying it, I dread it. And I think most people probably have a little bit of that, it's a lot of pressure.
Right.
But I think I felt it maybe 10 times as much.
And then when you got drafted as a professional, why did you make your decision to go to the USFL rather than the NFL at the start of your career?
You want the truth, or do you want me to?
The truth.
The truth. The truth was, I knew that if I was going to go to a new city, that I needed to go a place where I had people that I knew that I could be with, or I couldn't. To my mind, going to the NFL, it was Cincinnati, and I didn't know anyone in Cincinnati.
Right.
And Ohio was like, it might as well be, the middle of nowhere. I didn't know anybody, and so that really brought a lot of anxiety to me. And so I went to the USFL mostly because I knew people in LA. So I would go down there and I'd feel more comfortable. Now, did I say that at the time? No.
Yeah.
I said, I've got this great coach. This is a better opportunity to play, which were all true, but it wasn't fundamentally why I decided to go to Los Angeles.
So as your career moved along into the NFL, did you handle your anxiety even differently than early years? Because in college, it got even more.
Yeah, I think it got harder, being hit in San Francisco with Joe Montana and the pressures of trying to live up to those expectations and trying to be, as good as I wanted to get. And so I think that's what led to finally talking to the team doctor. I think in 1991, I actually, after a game, went to the team doctor because I hadn't slept in like 2 days. And I said, look, I think something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but I'm really struggling, and it's been hard, for a long time. And that's when there was a great moment when he was listening to me, and I was super scared to say it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to show weakness, and I'm going to show that maybe there's something wrong with me, and I don't know why, and I was really, super like self-conscious about it and worried. And I just remember when I was explaining it to him, that as I was explaining it to him, I was looking right in his eye, trying to tell him, all these things that I was feeling, and I noticed a big, huge tear come out of his eye and fall down his face. And I'm like, this is a guy that I think is one of the tougher guys in the world. He's a team doctor for the 49ers and an older guy, been around a long time. And then another one, and then another one. And all of a sudden, I called him Reggie. I go, Reggie, are you crying? And then he told me that he barely got through medical school. He's fought anxiety his whole life. That's what led to me finding out that I had childhood separation anxiety. Childhood separation anxiety shows up in not wanting to go to kids, overnight, being away from your home, and big changes. And so that's it. I was 33 years old when I finally figured out. People said, I'm like, oh my gosh, that explains so much. And that was super helpful, because that's why I want people to be able to have conversations around things that they're feeling, because you never know if there's help out there that's really just knowledge, like just knowing. I was super excited. I remember going out of the doctor's office when he told me that. I'm like, I'm so relieved, because now I know that it's like a thing, and then I can I can talk to it, and it could be, rather than this unknown fog. It was like, oh, well, now I've labeled you, and you're not gonna beat me. I'm gonna beat you. So that's how I looked at it.
And then, can you share how your 49ers coach Bill Walsh dealt with his anxiety at his position?
Well, I think everybody, he actually retired because of stress. It just became too much for him, and sometimes it's important. Like, this is what I say to people: there's things, because of your mental uniqueness, I'll say, that there's things that are super hard. Some are impossible right now. Some are just hard. The things that are hard, you got to go do. The things that are impossible, we'll work into over time. And so for a coach, he retired because he needed that space, and I'm totally respect that. And I also want to say that people that feel like they need to get medicated because that helps them deal with things, that's important too. So don't be afraid to ask questions around how you're feeling, because you never know what's out there that can be helpful.
As you progressed through your career and the stage got higher and higher, did you ever feel nervous being a role model for young people?
Always. My hero was Roger Staubach, who played for the Cowboys. He was a famous quarterback in the 70s when I was growing up, and he was a great guy. And I looked up to him. I wanted to be him. I wanted to throw the ball like him. I wanted to talk like him. I wanted to do everything like him. And he didn't know me. He never knew my name. He didn't know I was around. He didn't know I was alive. Until later, when we got to be friends, and as I started playing the NFL, which was really fun for me. And I told him how grateful I was for him, for his example, for what and he said to me, Steve, I just always wanted to be authentic to people and wanted to make sure that I was a good example, and I really appreciate what you said. And so it's always on me. I feel like I don't know who's out there that was watching me, but I feel like I need to pay it forward for what Roger did for me. Who's out there that I don't know, that's watching me, that has my poster up on the wall, that's looking at how I hold the ball, how I throw it, how I talk, what I say, how I act. So that's why I always try my best to pay it forward from my hero, Roger Staubach.
And many people think of the quarterback position as a physical position, but how much of being a great quarterback is mental?
Yeah, good question. I think I went went to law school, and that's a professional degree like med school or an MBA. Law school is 3 years of, advanced degree after college. And I had to memorize and study and do a lot of work to graduate from law school. I can tell you that if you want to play excellent top line quarterback in the NFL, it is more intellectually rigorous to do it in football than it is law school, because I did both. And the intellectual rigor from memorization, from recall, from data, just in your brain has to be so full of every nuance, every avenue, every piece of information. You have to study the hours that I studied football. You can't imagine. I mean, so that tells you that it is definitely an intellectual challenge.
As an anchor on the pregame and postgame show on Monday Night Football, do you ever get nervous when on camera?
Thayer, after all I've been through, it's really hard to get my heartbeat above 15. It's super easy. I do not get nervous at all. Sometimes I actually have to try to wake up. I'm like, I have to kind of get my energy up. Because it's just, I think what I've done over the years is I always say people, don't go around it, go through it. And by going through it over and over again, you gather strength. And it can be hard. And I just say that as a tip for people. Because now, towards the latter part of my life, I don't feel all that anxiety anymore. I don't feel stress. I don't feel as much. I'm more stressed about my kids now than I am about myself. That's for sure.
All right. And what tips do you have for young people like us to deal with anxiety?
So number one is people are much more aware of what I'll call our own mental uniqueness. People want to say mental illness, and I think people go, and they go running for the hills, and they're nervous, and they're scared, and they're afraid. I lived it, I understand that. But I think if you think about everybody has a mental uniqueness, and how can we find mental health? And every school has someone who's in charge of kind of your mental health. And very privately, having a small conversation, don't be afraid. That's why they're there. They can't wait to help you. They can't wait. And even if you think you have no issues, I'm perfect. It never hurts to just have some conversations around those kinds of things so that you can gain confidence about the fact that you are 100%, But inevitably, everybody's dealing with something. And I think I encourage everybody to not be afraid, to ask questions about how to make sure that you're as mentally healthy and in your own uniqueness. And I hope that nobody has to wait till they're 33 to figure out what the heck's going on, like I did. Thayer,
right.
Good job, bud.
Thank you.
Very good job. Congratulations.
Thanks so much for doing
That's
this.
Not easy.
This is awesome.
That's great. That's a great